Hi guys, it's Nathara at CrowSong Lodge, aka Charlene, and I am a tarot reader, a psychic, an occasional medium, witch, and all-around oddity. I'm here with my friends today, Heather and Maria, who you're probably getting pretty familiar with now, which is good for you.
My name is Heather. I'm in the middle of a midlife crisis.
Woo!
I have some podcasts. I do the witchy thing. And yeah, there you go.
My name is Maria Soul, and I'm a witch, tarot card reader, and all-out weirdo nerd. And I have a YouTube channel and an Instagram with the same name.
So today we wanted to talk about the episode of Last Week Tonight by John Oliver that just came out on February 25th, which was somebody's birthday. In the year 2019, that was all about psychics. Specifically, he really drilled down into mediumship. And being as we are all professional working psychics, this felt a little personal.
It's very interesting that he did it in Pisces season, though. Like, who's the astrologer in his group? Because the timing is impeccable.
I had not even thought of that. That is on the nose timing, isn't it?
Yeah. It's a little... I was like, no way. We're in Pisces season and he's talking about psychics and mediums. How is that even possible?
Yeah. That is not something I even researched. So I wish I had. But yeah, very, very, very on the nose. That's hilarious. So I wanted to start out by saying that one of the things John Oliver says at the very beginning of the episode is that he's not going to litigate whether or not psychics are real. Just to get it out of the way. And he says they clearly aren't. But the reason why this is such a hot topic is because, frankly, it is a religious topic or a philosophical topic. This comes down to what you believe the nature of reality is made out of. And that is why it is such a conflicted topic and why people are so all over the place about it. Mm-hmm. And why it has been so slippery for science to really get a grip on it. Science has not quite defined exactly what's going on, but it has pretty well figured out there is something strange happening that it can't exactly nail down. And I know, Heather, you've done a lot more research on that.
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty apropos what you just said. It's one of the things that they talk about a lot is consciousness in your body or outside of your body. They know that especially with when you're doing mediumship readings, they've done scans of mediums, and they are getting the information from outside of their body, or they're going into some field or some area out into the consciousness or whatever you want to call it that's outside of their body, in order to gain the information that it's not sure where they're pulling from. And most mediums don't really know that either because it's sort of this intangible thing. There are a lot of studies about precognition, presentiment, telepathy, ESP, that would be like clairvoyance and stuff like that. If you take the meta-analysis of all of the different studies, there is something there. There is definitely above average numbers here showing that people do have some kind of psychic experiences. About 60% of people have had a psychic experience in their lifetime. That's just a very, very high number. So yeah, they're just not really sure what it is, and they're not really sure what they're tapping into or how. There's this whole idea that there's a field, that we're all part of this matrix of this emotional field. And the more you connect with somebody, the more you pick up on them. So if you're related, you have the same DNA, or if you're married, or if you have a child, or something like that, where your connections are very strong, you're going to have more psychic experiences with them because you're in their field. And then there's a whole, if you really want to look this up, look up the Global Consciousness Project. They talk about how, right before major tragedies or major global things that happen, there is a spike in psychic awareness, and a lot of people react unconsciously, even though they don't know they do. For instance, they put a number of random generators all around the Earth in different areas. And right before 9/11, they had these huge spikes in the random generators where they knew something was going to happen. They just didn't know what. That happened especially with tsunamis and earthquakes. We all kind of feel it unconsciously, though we don't really know what's going to happen. We know something is going to happen. So we are connected in some way. But like Charlene said, we don't really know why or how. We don't know the logistics of it. And unfortunately, people keep saying that psychics and psychic experiences and ESP are all bullshit. So people in the field who are actually studying these things don't get the credit or the time, like on TV and in newspapers and in media, to really, really flesh out these ideas. Because anytime you see it, all the skeptics are right on it saying, no, this isn't happening. This is not real. This is what's really happening. And so the actual experiments don't get their due diligence.
So yes, it's not that people aren't interested in exploring it more on a scientific basis, and it's not that there isn't evidence for it out there. It's just really hard to get going through on a very rigorous scientific testing, especially since a lot of the experiences are very subjective, kind of in the same realm as psychology studies are. It's very, very hard, since it is all based on human experience, and you can't exactly put rats through the same situation. Case studies are kind of more the norm, rather than, duplicatable lab experiments where you can run generations and generations of rats through the same process in order to figure out exactly what's going on. You actually have to use real live humans, which slows down the scientific process a lot.
Well, it's the other part too is, and I was reading an article about this to kind of buff up for this talk, but one of the things that they said is that it's very hard to repeat or to duplicate a experiment with humans, because a lot of it is based on your mood, how you feel, your belief, what you're doing at the time. And so you could have the same person come in 3 times to the same experience and you get 3 different variations. Because like with mice are pretty straightforward. They don't have that whole emotional component or the experiential component. They're pretty much like, if they know they're going to get food, they're going to press the button. They will do the same thing over and over and over again. It's replicatable. With humans, we don't do that.
Right, and the problem with mice too is they can't tell us what their internal experience is like. And
exactly.
A lot of psychic phenomenon does require it depends entirely on that internal experience. So that makes it very, very hard to study. Like I said, it's very similar to studying psychology, where it's very hard to duplicate a lot of situations over and over and over. And now that we're getting better brain scanning technology and stuff, we are making some progress, but that equipment is very expensive and the studies move very slowly. So they are out there. They're being studied. They are happening. It's just a very slow and difficult process. So a meta study of all the studies, if you have a broad reading pool, kind of tells you a lot of them are inconclusive, or a lot of them show that there's something going on, but it's not quite what they thought it was going to be. So the most we can say is that sometimes there seems to be something, but we don't know what it is.
Yeah, so to outright say, and this is the one thing, like the rest of what John Oliver said, I was pretty like, yeah, okay, you're pretty on board. But the only thing that I would say is that he says that there is no such thing, and that's a misnomer. There's definitely something going on. So you can't just say nothing's going on. That's stupid to say. That's a misrepresentation.
Yeah, and that's why we wanted to start here, because he starts it at the very beginning. He says it's completely fake, and there's actually like a lot more going on in the field. I don't remember what John Oliver's religious affiliation is. I want to say he's an atheist, but I don't. I know he's disclosed that at some point, and I completely forgot to look it up. But I'm pretty sure he's an atheist, and like I said, a lot of whether or not you believe in psychic abilities at this point is a religious question until the science can get around to doing enough studies and enough work to really make a determination on that.
Well, there has been studies, and this is an interesting part in psychology, there have been studies about belief. So they found, and this is actually it's a replicatable study. They've done it since the 40s up until now, and it's always the same. They put people into 2 groups. That's called the sheep and goat effect. If you want to look it up, Gertrude Smueller was the first person to actually do it. So if you want to go and you want to look it up, this is something you can look on the internet, or there's actually peer-reviewed papers on it, so you can be really sciencey if you want. But basically, they put people who believe in one category and they put people who don't believe in another category, like into psychic abilities. So they found that people and I forget what it is, but I think the people who believe are sheep and then the other people are goats. And so they found that people who believe in psychic abilities have more psychic experiences in their life, and they can tell you about them, like, this has happened, this happened, this happened, this happened. They will continue to have more psychic experiences. People who do not believe in psychic experiences do not have psychic experiences. Belief really dictates your experiences in your life. So if you believe that you are, like Charlene always says, I have the Midas touch. So if you believe you have the Midas touch, then you're going to have more instances where you're going to prove that you have the Midas touch. But if you don't believe you have the Midas touch, then you will not have experiences that foster that belief.
But just for the sake of argument, isn't that like the same thing as confirmation bias?
It is confirmation bias. It absolutely is. But that's how our brain works. Our brains are predictive, and that was something that the U of A, University of Arizona studied. They studied predictive behavior. The brain is predictive, meaning that our experiences are dictated by our beliefs, and so our brains are always a few seconds ahead of us, or so unconsciously we're always looking for a confirmation bias. If you have bad feelings about yourself and you think you're a piece of shit, then you are going to unconsciously look for experiences that confirm that. It takes having an experience where you're not a piece of shit in order for you to believe that you are not a piece of shit. It's really strange how that works.
So you will not be looking for those experiences.
You will not be looking for those experiences. So usually you have to either go to therapy or you have to have somebody around you that is showing you that you can have different experiences. And then once you start to have those experiences, then your brain goes, oh, okay, I'm going to factor that in now. I could possibly have these experiences. So let's see what happens if I create these experiences. Let's do some unconscious experimenting to see if I could put this into the mix.
So are you saying that most psychic experiences can be caused by like manifesting psychic experiences?
Exactly, yeah, because our brains are predictive, so we're always unconsciously looking for proof.
Okay, and then also, like, if you're not open to the idea of psychic experiences, you will literally not notice them.
You will not notice them, or you'll just tune them out. So you will be not using your psychic abilities. You will not be using your sixth sense, basically, or your other senses. There's more than six senses, but you will not be using your air quote sixth sense. Therefore, you will not be having psychic experiences, and anything that anybody else sees as psychic, you will not see it as that. You'll be able to explain it away with logic or denial or delusion.
Or coincidences.
Or coincidences, yeah.
Are my favorite. Now, I personally have more than one, but I have one definitive experience I can point at that, to me at least, is completely irrefutable. Do you guys have that too?
Yes. Absolutely, yeah.
Okay, so I definitely have one, and at the time that it happened, I wrote it down, and then it was confirmed the next day. It was a precognitive experience. I saw the whole thing play out. And then the next day it happened exactly the same way. At the time I was like, I don't know why it happens this way, but this is what I saw. And then the next day it happened exactly the way I saw it. And I was like, oh shit, that sucks. So for me, that's irrefutable because not only did it happen, but I had written it down. So in hindsight, I can still go back to it and be like, yeah, I really did see what I thought I saw. Like, that's not my memory playing tricks. I'm not filling in gaps that weren't really there. I can look at my writing and be like, yeah, no, that's really something I saw.
Yeah, so there's interesting things about dreams. Most people who have precognitive tendencies have them in dreams. But what's interesting about dreams is that people can have precognitive dreams and not be psychic. They may have a few experiences in their life that are precognitive, and then they will not have any abilities, or they will not know they have abilities in real life, because unconsciously your brain is going, hey, I'm alerting you of these things and you're taking in energy, but consciously you are not able to. So it's kind of an interesting thing too, because people don't really think about dreaming as being precognitive or presentiment or, having that effect on you. That's partly why it's really, really hard to nail down some of this stuff, because we don't really know what our unconscious in. Again, we don't know where consciousness lies. It doesn't seem to be in our bodies. It seems to be what they call non-local. Why would you be able to have a precognitive experience in your dream, but not have psychic experiences in real life? I mean, the simple answer is that your unconscious is not aware of your conscious, and vice versa. But there is that's a lot of convolutedness right there. And again, that's why skeptics say that you can't nail this stuff down, therefore it doesn't exist. But that's like saying, well, we don't have a whole dinosaur, we only have a few bones, so dinosaurs don't exist. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Or trying to say definitively that God doesn't exist.
Right, exactly.
Right.
I can't assert with proof that he does, but I can't write him off completely.
Right,
I
exactly.
just simply don't know either way.
I think part of the reason why I get so frustrated with this whole psychics are bad thing is that a psychic is a human experience. It's something that we all can accept or not accept. Again, it's down to beliefs, in which you said it. A lot of it has to do with Christianity, and it seems that if you're a psychic, then you are somehow competing with God. And I never really understood that, because the Bible says that we are of God, or we're like God, or we have likeness of God. And so if he can do miracles, then we should be able to have some of that. At least we should have these experiences. And if we're supposed to be communicating with him, and he's non-local, and we're supposed to be communicating with our angels, because they're supposed to be watching over us, and our guardians, then we need to have some sort of built-in mechanism to do that. And I believe that's what psychic experiences are. So I
totally agree.
Why would God, if we're going in that direction, I don't really believe in that, but if we are, why wouldn't he give us fail-safes for that kind of stuff?
Right? Or a way to communicate that doesn't involve blinding and deafening us.
Yeah. That always is.
Subtle, ding dong, pay attention.
Right.
And speaking of the non-localized consciousness, I was thinking about this whole topic in the shower, as I am wont to do. We tell each other reassuringly that we are not our bodies and we are not our brains. So we have this concept that we are, our minds are our consciousness, but we don't actually have a physical definition for that, a science-y definition. What is my consciousness? And this is something that is talked about a lot in psychology, you are not your brain. Especially when it comes to mental illness, if you are someone who suffers from bipolar disorder or schizophrenia, that's what they tell you a lot. You are not your brain. You are not your schizophrenia. You can step outside of that and say oh, look, my brain is doing this thing right now. And you can recognize it, that your brain is misfiring at the moment and producing chemicals it really shouldn't be at that moment, and not be attached to that experience as something that you are doing. You recognize it as a physical malfunction of your brain. But then, we have to recognize that our consciousness is not located in the brain then. It is something else that we have not defined or figured out.
We don't really know we know what our brains do, but we don't really know how your brain and your consciousness work simpatico. Because, if we're a spirit, or, if we have all these different bodies, the ethereal body, the auric body, blah, blah, and we are a spirit in a meat suit, then technically our consciousness should be outside of our bodies. That would make sense, because we're an energetic force versus a, charcoal being. So our consciousness should not be in our brain, but our brain has a lot to do with our consciousness. So it's confusing how that works. And yeah, you can look outside of yourself. That's part of psychology, is learning how to step outside of yourself and see yourself from that viewpoint.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. We haven't quite, we've nailed down what we are not.
Yeah.
We haven't quite nailed down what is this I. And so at the moment, that question is very much a philosophical or religious one.
It is, and it really shouldn't be. It should be more of a scientific question, because if we have brains, then that's science-y, then how we have experiences or how we navigate the world should be science. It should not have nothing to do with philosophy or religion. It should have to do with like what we're doing here. Like, okay, so we have these brains and we have this consciousness, and how does that work? That should be something that everybody should want to know, because that gets us closer to where do we go when we die.
Well, I think everybody does want to know. And I think science will eventually get there, but religion and philosophy right now address the questions that science can't.
Yeah. And it's all based on conjecture. It's all based on old texts that have been like bastardized, agendized. Well, not all of it, but a lot of it. I think I'm talking as far as Christianity goes. I mean, the King James Version is such a bastardized, agendized propaganda version of the Bible. It's not even real. And we see that as air quotes gospel, and it's not. It's just if you look at the original text and the original translations, you look at the King James, it's like two separate entities. It's not even a thing.
I don't even count the King James.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking of. It's just there's so many different versions of it, and there's so many different scripts and texts that we're still finding. There's a scroll that says that Jesus had a wife, and then it says like, and they don't have the rest of the papers, so they don't know like, oh, what was the context of it and stuff like that, where we just sort of dismiss it, or a lot of people dismiss it, and it's like, no, that's important. That scroll is important, just like the Dead Sea Scrolls are important, just like they're all important, because if you take them all, then you have the greater story. Like, we're so myopic with our beliefs that, there's only the Bible and that's it. And, the Book of Enoch is bullshit. And you're like, well, no, that actually, there's some credence to that. Like, you believe in the war of the angels, but you say that Enoch is full of shit. And it's like, no, you can't have both.
Yeah, but we also recognize that there are a lot of religious and philosophical beliefs beyond Christians and monotheism. Like
yes,
there's a lot of them.
Definitely. There are, yes.
Yeah.
And they're friendly, yeah.
I'm just gonna represent all the non-Christian faiths out there right now.
Woo! Hold that flag.
That is a personal issue that I have, because I end up having this argument with atheists a lot, where they're like, religion is evil, and I'm like, religion or Christianity? Because those are two different words for a reason.
Yeah, I guess I'm lumping Christianity as everything, because in the Western society, it's really Christianity or death. Those are two choices.
Yeah, it's been like the powerhouse for it's brought down kingdoms and whatnot. So yeah, it's shaped a lot of, especially a lot of countries and how they think of themselves and individuals and whatnot.
It is a 500-pound gorilla, but it is not the most popular. There are not a lot. There are a couple religions out there who have more members in them than Christianity does worldwide. So,
which are
Buddhism and Islam.
Oh, cool. That's fascinating to me.
Yeah, and Hindu's right behind Christianity. So.
Oh damn!
Yeah.
Okay, so why does Christianity get such a high placement in our brains?
Well, none of those other religions are high-ranking among Western countries.
Okay.
Yeah, and most of them are, as far as I'm aware of, they're not join us or die, or at least have that history and continue having that history.
Yeah.
Go into the South and say that you're not a Christian. Have fun with that.
Yeah, seriously.
Yeah, you can. That's the problem between us and you, Maria. There's a whole South between California and Florida.
I'm just glad I live in the South that is Latino, very, very Hispanic. I live in Miami, so there's a lot of santeros and all that jazz.
Yeah, you went south enough to get out of that.
Yeah, I'm so south that it doesn't affect. I'm not in the Bible Belt, in other words.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So addressing that statement, he started the whole show with the whole thing where psychics are clearly not real. There are clearly issues with that statement where it needs to be examined further. But let's go ahead and move on to the rest of the show, because there were a lot of other points he made there, most of which I totally agree with. And I think Heather, you mentioned already that you did too.
I did, and I just want to mention this right before we segue. I was reading an article. It's just a recent article, and I can't remember where it was, but it was a notable magazine. But it was saying that as of 2019, there are more witches than Presbyterians in the United States.
Yes.
Oh, I saw that article too.
Yeah, that is exciting.
Yes. So there is hope.
Yes, that's a big hope because we're very chill people.
At least for the most part, yeah.
Well, ask Maria about that, but
I'm just
That is
saying
another
in
podcast
general,
altogether.
That is a general statement, not a strict rule. There are some that we're giving the side eye today. But on the whole, we're usually pretty chill about things. I kind of have like a blow by blow rundown of the episode, just so that we like can take it in a chronological if we want. I did a little research into each and every single one of the psychics who were mentioned on the show. Famous mediums or debunked gotchas that he showed. The first one that he showed was the lady who was on the Inside Edition Sting, where they had contacted her, and the reporter was showing her a picture of the little girl, and then she goes, "This little girl is me, and you said that she was murdered."
right.
And then the psychic said, "That's interesting, isn't it?" Which is an interesting response altogether. But that psychic is Lori McQuarrie, and she has several books. She's done like a buttload of workshops and stuff. Several books. She has been profiled on Lifetime channel on a special called Beyond Chance. 52 television experiences, 21 radio shows, highlighted in 4 books. She has her own books, and she's claimed credit for solving several missing persons cases and murders and stuff, and even married one of the detectives on one of the cases she was working. As she was in the psychic business, including psychic detective work, for 33 years, and she just retired about a year ago.
So I have some data on about someone being dead or not dead, as far as if you want to go with mediumship and you want to go with science with that.
Yeah, sure. I think you and I probably have the same numbers, but I want to hear you say them.
Okay, well, mine is, I was actually part of an experiment for this. It's really hard. Yeah, it's really hard to differentiate from dead energy and live energy, because energy is energy. And these are just the results that I was told based on the experiment that I did with the Windbridge Institute. But they say that most people only have a 50-50 chance of figuring out live or dead energy, and that's even psychic people or mediums. It's the numbers are, you don't know.
Yeah, I can confirm that. Like I don't advertise mediumship services, but I have dead folks pop in when they feel like it. And the way I can tell if they're dead or alive is if I can see them, they're alive, and if I can't, they're dead. Like, that's it. I only have visual reference, and so if the situation isn't one where I can see them, then I'm just kind of like, I'm picking up a person, I don't know.
It's really hard to tell, and they were doing an experiment, and they were showing people, I got shown 20 pictures of people, and they said which ones are alive and which ones are dead, and they were in all different various of colors and creeds and ages. So, and he told me, the person who I was doing the study with told me at the end, he says, well, you're right on par with everybody else. You got about 50%. And I'm like, oh, that's interesting. And he said, if you're really a good medium, like you're really, really good, like you never get anything wrong, you're going to go up higher. But the average is 50%.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. Like, I know when I was really young, I used to have an issue where I could see dead folks as well, which is such a freaking cliche. And I couldn't tell the difference. I thought they were living people too. My mom spotted me like walk around someone. She was like, "What are you doing?" That was weird. And I was like, "I'm walking around that dude." And she was like, "No one's there."
That's really cool. I mean, I've had experiences like that too, but it's just really hard to recognize the difference between, I mean, energy. Energy is energy, right? So you're going to see it however they decide to show themselves to you. And if you're open to that, you're going to see them as living or dead. And sometimes you just see them in the form that they want you to see them. The issue with me, though, and this is why I was like, okay, yeah, you kind of screwed yourself there, girl, is because if you're on national TV, you should be watching what you say about this stuff. If you know the science, behind energy. And I think that's the problem, is most of these psychics, mediums, don't really take the time to actually figure out what their gifts are and why they do what they do, and they don't actually study this stuff. But if you have that knowledge, then you know you're going to have a 50-50 chance. And instead of saying this person is dead, she should have said, well, science says that I only have a 50-50% chance, and I don't feel comfortable doing that. This is how I feel right now. And this could be clairvoyance. This could be mediumship. I'm not sure.
But here's the thing. I'm human just like anybody else. You know, I will get a question wrong. I will answer it because that's what I'm thinking that it is. But, you know, it's not like it comes in a blueprint. It's not like, you know, you get all the answers and you know how to work it. It's like a bicycle or a car. You have to learn it, but you never really learn everything. I mean, I drive my car, but I don't know how to freaking fix it if it breaks down. It's like, if I fail at one reading, does that mean that I'm not psychic for you because I just have one failed reading? But even if I have like over 1,000 that I've done, that I've said things to people that would be completely like, that no way would be like something that I could easily get just by like their reaction or their body language or something in that nature. You know, how is it that those don't count? But that one bad reading, that means that, nope, you're not psychic. You know, that proves it right there. But everything else doesn't. You know, like, doesn't prove it the other way around.
And that's one thing that frustrates me. And my honey and I were talking about this last night, is that I've been invited by people to help on psychic investigations before. And I always just completely no. Because I do make mistakes. There are sometimes I'm wrong because I'm a freaking human. I don't have 100% accuracy rate. I mean, I'm more accurate than the weatherman for sure, but I'm not perfect. And when you get into stuff like missing persons, being wrong could cost a life.
Well, on average, a typical psychic, your average psychic person, is only between 55 to 60% correct. If you really hone your skills, you can get way up there. If you're like super psychic, you can get up there. It's like with anything else. You practice at it, your percentage goes up. But the average psychic is usually about 60% correct. So you have a 40% chance of getting things wrong.
I've been a file clerk. I've also been an administrative assistant. I've also been an executive administrative assistant. I've been a website designer. I've been a computer programmer. I've done a lot of other things, and I wasn't perfect at any of those other jobs either. And there was never once where I made a coding error and someone said, "Ha, you're not really a programmer."
The other thing about this woman too, and I know a few of the psychics did this, and there was another psychic that the person was standing behind them, or the kid was sitting behind her. The one thing that I would say about this too is, how do you know she's not tapping into an alternate reality? How do you know that wasn't supposed to happen to that girl and something changed it, or she changed it, or, you know what I mean? You don't know what you're tapping into sometimes. What if this happens to me all the time? And I would love to know the history of that reporter, because a lot of times I'll get readings from people, like my palm even, and I will get readings from my family members. Like, for a long time there, for like about 2 years, anytime anybody read my palm or read me, they said that you have a heart condition, you gotta watch out for your heart. And I was like, I know there's nothing wrong with me, I get checked all the time. Well, ends up my aunt died from a heart attack within like 24 months of those readings. And as soon as she died, those readings went away, and nobody ever talks about my heart anymore. So there is some of that too. Like we said, we're all connected, like in that field, that matrix. And if you're psychic and you're picking up on the people around you and you're taking that information in, if you're empathic, then that psychic, let's say that reporter is really close to somebody who actually died, or maybe she's doing a case that's really affecting her emotionally about a little girl that's died, that psychic is going to pick up on that and say, this little girl is dead. So we don't know the back history of that. So just to say that she was wrong and I'm alive, so therefore it doesn't count, you're not getting all the information. It's out of context.
Yeah. And they did say, because I went and I read the original Inside Edition article, that they went to a total of 10 psychics with the same exact story over and over and over again. And all of them said that the little girl was dead. Now, there is another possibility that the psychics were picking up what the client wanted them to say.
Ah, yes.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so if the person across from you is thinking, she's dead, 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 it could be that the psychic picked up, well, she's dead.
Yeah, because that's the energy that they're throwing out. Mm-hmm. So of course that's what it's going to come up for the psychic.
Yeah.
Because I've had that. And I've had the time that I've been read, and I'm thinking, bro, I hope she says this. And I'm like constantly saying, and all of a sudden, like, you really want this to happen, don't you? And I'm like,
caught me.
Damn it.
Yeah. I mean, I think part of that too is if 10 psychics said the same thing, the little girl is dead, then you might want to look into that because there's something there.
There's something going on with this experiment that made it skewed in some way.
Right. There is a dead girl somewhere in this scenario.
Or they could have just done this. Instead of it being the reporter, it is a girl who is dead. But they wanted to, like, say that psychics weren't real because they wanted to be sensational and all that jazz. And the reporter's lying, saying that's her. It could be that too. I mean, wouldn't you do that if you wanted a story? Yeah. If you wanted to, like, you know, make something.
As recent evidence has shown us, there are news organizations that lie.
Yeah.
This is true. There has to be something to it. There's no way all 10 psychics would have said the girl was dead.
You're not going to have such consistent results ever. And I'm not saying that there are no scammers out there, because they are the plague of my existence, believe me. So there's a lot of, like, because humans are weird, we perceive things different way. And so working as a psychic, like, I get information, and every now and then with a client, like, I get the information and I have to interpret it and then deliver it in a way to my client that they're going to understand it. And every once in a while I get information and I'm like, dude, I don't know. Like, these are the puzzle pieces I have. I have no clue what picture they're making. And so I'm just like, okay, client, this doesn't make any sense to me. I have no idea what this can mean. I'm just going to give you the puzzle pieces and maybe they make sense to you. And they almost always do. They're like, oh yeah, this is talking about blah, 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 and that's talking about blah, blah. I know exactly what that is. I'm like, oh, thank goodness, because I didn't have a clue. I was like, okay, here I go. I'm going to sound like a crazy person. You know, we can only interpret things through our personal experience. So if I'm seeing something that I'm not familiar with, putting that into words and trying to describe something I have no context for or experience with comes out kind of wackadoo. But yeah, and so a lot of people, and people do this in general, not just psychics, but people try to force context onto those things, and it gets weird.
Yeah, that's why sometimes when I'm reading somebody and it comes out and I'm like, this is odd, or doesn't make sense to me, or something like that, I'm like, look, I'm just going to tell you what I see and you fill in the pieces. And usually it works out that way, because sometimes I'm reading like a relative, or I'm getting something that isn't part of her question, but it's something that she needs to know. It's not a perfect science. Reading somebody, being psychic, it's not a perfect science. I wish it was, because then I wouldn't have to defend it every single time that I would be like, hey, I'm a reader. I'm a tarot card reader. And they're like, really? Does it really work? And I'm like, yes, it really does.
One interesting thing that I found while researching, I wanted to see if any of the psychics mentioned in the show had responded or commented on the show in any way. Right? Because it was huge, not just in the psychic community, not just in the late night community, but it blew up in the media in general. And only 2 had any responses that I was able to find. The first one was Tyler Henry of the Hollywood Medium. He has apparently gone on a whole bunch of shows and done interviews about it all over the place. So he is just talking all over the place. The main statements that he is making is that, 1, he isn't told who he's going to read before he shows up. And the reason he does that is because he is reading celebrities and he doesn't want to be accused of hot reading like he was. So his way to keep his reading clean is to, and by clean I mean unblemished or unbiased, is to not know who he's reading until his driver takes him there. But he also said that this season he has been working with a guy named Dr. Drew and his assistant doing a bunch of brain scans. And Dr. Drew chose the sitters or the clients while Tyler Henry was in his lab. And so the scientist chose the sitters, brought them in, had Tyler Henry read them, and while he was reading them, was scanning his brain. Mm-hmm. And so I guess when the new season comes out, we'll get to see those episodes. So I thought that was really fascinating, especially with what you were saying, Heather, about the brain scans that have been done before on mediums.
There's a HBO documentary on it.
Oh.
Forgot what it's called. I'll look it up but there's an HBO documentary on it. It came out in the 2000s, and it shows John Edward being scanned, and it shows the redheaded lady who Medium was fashioned after. I forgot her name. Yeah, Alison Dubois. They both were in the documentary. It's Gary Schwartz's Veritas lab in the University of Arizona. He goes through all of the experiments with you. It's really interesting. I do believe in John Edward. He's probably the only one that I actually, and Alison Dubois, I believe in them both, but they've both been tested to the gods. There's no test they haven't gone through. I've seen John Edward in real time. That man is on. There are things that he got when the circle was about a few thousand people there, but there are some things that he got that I was like, whoa, where did you get that? Totally random things that I would never even think of even going there.
Well, I'm curious about your experience with that, as a psychic. Can you talk to the energy of that?
Of course, yeah.
Just for my own gratuitous knowledge?
So, it was very, very weird, I have to say, because I wasn't really close to him. We got them as a birthday present for me, and so the person who bought them didn't have a lot of money, so they just dude, we got you the best seats we could with what we had. So we were kind of in the back. As soon as, and of course I'm going to read him because I'm really interested.
Yeah.
He walked in to the middle of this circle, and he has this presence of nothingness, and that's all how I can explain it. He is empty, blank. And I was like, ooh, that's interesting. He prepped himself, and I already know that he does a lot of meditating, right? He does an hour meditation before he goes on. So he totally prepped his mind for this. He went into that place. As soon as he started reading, he went on, and I don't know how to explain it. The whole room changed. It got really electric. I felt the energy being pulled in that direction. I was starting to pick up on stuff. So a lot of times I knew where he was going before he was going. I was picking up on stuff. It's that kind of thing where if you're even a little bit psychic, you're going to pick up on it because he pulls that hard. There were a lot of things that actually pertain to my life, even though he didn't pick me. And I was like, that's interesting. And I wonder how many people in this room have similar situations happening. And we're not talking simple things. We're talking about Rh negative blood. We're talking about blood diseases. We're talking about weird things that not heart failure. You know what I mean? Some really random weird things. And I was like, that's very, very interesting. I don't know. For me, he felt very genuine to me, and he does argue with people because people are dumb in those situations and we forget things. Mm-hmm. And he's always like, no, I got this. I'm not going to turn back on this. I know what I'm getting. And he's very adamant about it. And usually people go, oh, I know what you're talking about now. But it takes a few minutes for them to kind of put everything together because they're expecting to hear from one person, they hear from another person. Now, I did see James Van Praagh, too. And I was actually closer to him than I was John Edward. And I was like, your abilities are so-so. You're not that good. There was something about him where he does a lot of cold reading at first. He does a lot of you can tell he's not on, and then he turns on and then he turns off, then he turns on, then he turns off. He does a thing between cold reading and then being psychic and then goes back to cold reading. It wasn't as genuine for me, and I didn't feel that energy shift or anything. I was sitting in the thing going, I could do this. I can do the James Van Praagh gig. This is easy. I got this figured out. Because he's not to say that he's not psychic. He's just not. His
methods or the way he does it is different or not as good as you thought it would be?
There's a bit of cold reading. There's a lot of cold reading. There's a lot of questioning. There's a lot of guessing. There's a lot of guesswork. He doesn't get the information like straight shot.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's like he's got to grope for an in.
Yeah, exactly. That you just said.
Yeah, like he's got to create an opening before he can connect.
Right.
Yeah, and I mean there is actually. We talked about cold reading and how it's bad. Go ahead and like look this up. It's called Rules for Sitters, and it's about how you do like this is actually something that's scientific again, but it's called Rules for Sitters, and it's the methodology for doing table tipping or doing any kind of psychic circle work. And essentially cold reading is part of that. Like you always have somebody in your group that is going to, they call it like push the energy. So you have somebody who starts that energy going, and so that person fakes it at first. So your first few table tips or your first few answers are going to be manufactured on purpose to get the energy going. But once the energy is going, then you don't have to manufacture it anymore, because now you have the power of belief, and that like I said before, that dictates everything.
So it's like using it as an icebreaker, basically, just to get people to open up and chill out.
Yes, and that's what Jen Prog does. He uses a lot of cold reading to get people in the mood. Then he pulls the energy that he needs to. He has bursts of like information, and then he stops. And you can see it happen in real time.
And then moves.
Yeah, then moves.
I understand the process, but I think I think it looks bad. It just appears bad, is what I mean. Like people sneer at that, but I can understand the process.
For me, that if I'm comparing the two, which I really shouldn't, because it's different.
Yeah. But
I really felt like John Edward. Like I doubted John Edward for a long time, and being in that room with him, I was like, okay, this guy's got something. This is crazy.
That's really curious to me, because I really, really dislike John Edward. Like,
well, he's not a nice person. He's not a nice person.
He's not?
No.
Okay, well, that explains that then. However, I was looking to see who responded to John Oliver's show, and he was the other person who responded. And one of his fans tweeted him and was like, uh-oh, dude, I'm watching John Oliver's show, and you're on it a lot, and it's not very nice. Have you seen it? And he was like, no, I haven't seen it, but I've heard about it. I'm not going to watch it. And then then there was another exchange, and then he tweeted the guy, it was about, he said something about skepticism, and the guy was like, I wish I could brush it off as easily as you do. And he said, I have an entire episode of South Park, amongst others, and I know this will sound crazy, but I appreciate his show and what he does, and maybe the show will arm people to be critical thinkers. I encourage skepticism. Ask this other guy about it. He knows. He actually had a lot of really complimentary things to say about John Oliver, and about how much he likes his show, and that he tries to always watch it, and that he was going to specifically skip this episode. And I was like, yeah, if I were on John Oliver's show, I would also skip my episode. I love John Oliver. Well,
I think it's one of those things where he has been tested so many times, like legitimately tested in a laboratory setting so many times, that he's just over it. Like, he's like, I don't care. Now, Tyler Henry, he's young, and I'm like millennial thinking, ooh, I'm on this show. Now I need to keep the ball rolling, the whole jab, 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 punch thing. So I'm going to keep doing I'm going to do as many interviews as I can, so that I can be in the press at all times, because that's going to make my show numbers go up.
Right. And he has a new season coming out. So,
of course. So this is, for him, this is a great publicity boost.
Also, he's a baby. He's only 23.
I don't know if he's real or not.
I don't know either.
Is he the blonde guy?
Yes.
The young blonde? He seems okay. Like, but I don't know if he's real either. He does all like celebrity readings.
He's the Hollywood psychic.
The Hollywood psychic, yeah, that's him.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I honestly don't care for most of the super famous mediums. I'm pretty over it. I think they get to, like, my personal theory on it that I've had for a while now is that they get, once they start having the big shows and the TV shows and all that, they are under a lot of pressure to never be wrong.
Mm-hmm.
So they kind of have to stack the deck. Because once you're on the talk shows and all that, if you whiff one, you're going down. And I was talking to my honey the other day. There are sometimes I am, I set up to do readings and stuff. I log in for the day, and I have like a lukewarm reading, or like I whiff one. I have to like apologize and bow out. And then like I have another one that doesn't go so well, and I'm like, oh, I'm having a bad day. I'm logging off. And like if I had shown up to do a talk show and it turns out it's a bad day, I have no clue how you would back out.
Yeah.
Like, you're 10 minutes into a live show. How do you go like, I'm having an off day. These are all going to be bad. Bye. Bye. It was nice. Sorry. Fill 50 minutes on your own. Bye.
That's why people were like, oh, like, you're a psychic. Why don't you do like one of those like TV shows or talk? And I was like, are you crazy? Are you psycho? I don't want to do any of that stuff. I just want to have like my, my clients, and that's it. Thank you very much. Because the minute that you get something wrong, that's it. Like, everybody remembers that, but they never remember how you got it right, like the 3 million other times.
So the documentary I'm talking about,
yeah,
has to do, so there's a book. It's called The Afterlife Experiments: Breakthrough Scientific Evidence of Life After Death by Gary Schwartz. And then the documentary is called The Afterlife Experiments, or something very close to that.
I'm just going to write down Gary Schwartz.
Life After Life, I believe, is what it's called.
Oh, I like Life After Life. That's a good title.
It's either Life After Life or The Afterlife Experiments. Either one will bring the documentary up. And the documentary was actually on YouTube in like 10 parts, so it was probably uploaded when, there was a 10-minute limit.
Yeah.
And it's very, very good if you really want to know about the science of mediumship. It's very, very well done. Gary Schwartz used to work for the U of A, that's University of Arizona, for those of you who don't know. And he was kind of the forerunner in mediumship research for a lot of years. Yeah, so check that out. And there's a lot about Alison Dubois on that one, and John Edward, and a few other psychics that you'll probably recognize. I don't remember all the names. But who else was in that list that you were talking about?
Okay, so we have Mary O, Tyler Henry from the Hollywood Medium, Psychic Tia, Mama Medium, Teresa Caputo, the Long Island Medium, who I cannot even deal with.
Oh, don't even get me started.
Right, yeah. John Edward, James Van Prague. Some people appear twice. Rose Marks, who went to prison for scamming $17 million from June Devereaux in order to connect with her dead son.
Oh, we remember that.
The Lowitzers from Texas with the kidnapped daughter, who had the psychics harassing them and guaranteeing to have their daughter home in 3 days. Sylvia Brown, who is deceased, who the kidnapped girl watched say that she was dead on live TV. Dr. Phil, who's not a doctor, who had a psychic detective on last month. I did not figure out who the name of that detective was.
I didn't see that one either.
And then the Deborah Dominique was the psychic who had the boy sitting in the Denny's behind her, who she said was dead. I thought her response was great, though, because she said, oh, that's great. Like, yay, I whiffed it. So I thought it was a good response, at least. And that was the list of all the psychics. Deborah Dominique has disappeared. She used to be really active on social media, and all of her accounts have been deleted now. But yeah, the other famous psychics that they mentioned, other than John Edward and Tyler Henry, none of them had anything to say at all about John Oliver. But Tyler Henry did offer in his interview to give John Oliver a free reading.
I would like to see that.
Would think it would be too late now, because now it would be a hot reading, since Tyler claimed that he doesn't know who he's reading ahead of time. So
that is true. It would be a hot reading.
Yeah.
Well, not if he doesn't know at the time that he's going to read them.
Like, maybe if he doesn't know that day, but he could, like, look it up now. Like,
well, why couldn't they do it through a partition?
Oh, it could be like a secret spy network thing. Like John Oliver could contact his people, and his people could set it up and not tell Tyler Henry. That's true. I would like to see that. I really would. So, if John Oliver's listening,
you could do a blind reading. Like I said, like you could put John Oliver in the room, put Tyler Henry in the room, put a partition between them.
Oh, that would be cool.
Yeah.
Ooh, mystery reading.
That would be awesome. So that's totally cool.
Yeah, and I don't know if that's something that Tyler Henry is familiar with, has done before, would be comfortable doing. But I know I only work with a name. Like I do most of my readings by text. So I don't even get to hear a voice. So and I don't even need a real name. I just need a name.
Somebody to refer the person, and that's it.
Yeah, exactly. And so, like, it can be done. I know not all psychics are comfortable doing that because they haven't really gotten to try it out and feel it out and stuff. But that would be fun. I would love to see, like, John Oliver on a partition between Tyler Henry. And so, kind of like what's that new show that they're doing now with the masked singers?
Oh, yeah, Masked Singers. That's what it's called.
That's too straightforward a title to remember.
That's funny.
But that would be good. I think that'd be kind of cool. But at the same time, it's like the minute that a psychic would get it wrong, it would be like, well, that proves that you're not psychic. Even though I've proven myself, like it's, like the minute that they get it wrong, it doesn't matter how good they were before.
Yeah.
It's like, see, we proved it. We proved something that we already know. You prove something that you don't want to even see past your own belief. So, hey, have a nice day with that.
And the whole 100% correct streak thing that psychics are often held to is extremely frustrating because it's not like John Oliver hasn't had to issue corrections.
This is true. I think, though, that if you're working with people who are dead or alive, then I would be really careful with that because that whole thing with the blonde one with the long nails. What's her name? She's dead.
Sylvia Brown?
I always want to call her Sylvia Plath, and I know that's wrong.
No. Sylvia Plath is completely different, yeah.
I know.
Sylvia
Depressed
Brown.
writer. I got it. Yeah. Sylvia Brown. So I remember that episode. And I remember I followed Sylvia Brown's career because I was very fascinated by her. And I truly believe that she was on top of her shit for a little while there, and I've read most of her books, and 3 or 4 in, something shifted, and it's like she, what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah, because I followed her too. My mom loved her.
Yeah, and she gave up or something, or she believed her own bullshit or something.
Yes.
Because and then I was like, you're getting this from other places. This is not, she said that she would channel this information. I'm like, this is not channel information. This is shit I found on the internet. This is stuff that I've read in other books. Like, now you're just parroting. Like, there's no longer any connection. So what happened? And I feel like on the Montel show, I watch her and go, what are you doing, lady? Like, this is not psychic anymore. Like, I don't know.
She got caught up with all the Hollywood shit and all the, having to be on the ball all the time. And
yeah, she burned out or something.
Yeah, and that, in fact, like I said, I was talking to my honey last night, and I was telling him about her. Like, I was following her when she just first started out, and I read almost all of her books and everything. And there's just, this shift. Because she was, super on her game, and just really reputable, and just nailing things left and right. And then there's, this moment where it's just now there's, nothing. You're phoning it in.
You're phoning it in, yeah. And I really feel like during that one where she said the late girl was dead, I think that is a process of elimination because she's probably done so many readings like that, and she's going off of this girl has been gone for years. Of course she's dead. The odds are that she's dead. So she's phoning it in at that point.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I feel. She was just okay, well, it's been more than 48 hours, so what are the odds?
Off you go.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the other thing, too, the other one that I want to talk about is that the woman who had the person behind them, the kid, and she said the kid was dead and the kid was behind them.
Yeah, that's Deborah Dominique. She's disappeared since then. She's the one I told you has deleted all her social media.
Okay, so that one to me seems so weird because wouldn't you be able to feel the energy of the person behind you?
I see. I don't know, because for me, that's pictures are weird. I see. For me, I don't like reading pictures, and I did that for a while. One of the sites that I used to be on launched a site that was just for reading pictures, where people would just submit a picture and get, no questions or anything. They'd just submit a picture and be like, "What can you tell me?" And I worked that site for a while, and I just reading a picture is weird. I don't like it. Because the time is displaced.
That's interesting that you said it that way. I am not good at that. I think that's a particular skill set, like remote viewing. I suck at remote viewing. I'm the worst. And I think pictures are kind of on board with that. They're the same kind of a vibe where you're really having to remote view at that time and figure out if that person is alive, and you got to follow their whole timeline to see where they are in that timeline. It's not just looking at the picture. That is not my skill set. So if you were to put me in front of it, I'd be like, fuck if I know. Let me touch something. I can give you all the information in the world. Like I practiced the other day. I didn't mean to, but we were at somebody's house just recently, and they gave me 3 watches, and they say who these watches belong to. And I'm like, these 2 belong to a person that so-and-so. This one is different, though. I don't know who this is, but it's somebody, and I see a dark-haired man around it. Somebody looks Mexican, but I'm sure he's not Mexican. He's probably more Italian. And they're like, the guy was like, oh, that watch is mine. The other 2 are my father's. And I said, well, then who's the dark Mexican person around you? He's like, I don't know. It belongs to me. And I'm like, damn, I'm off my game. Like I totally read that wrong. But then I was looking in the room, and I'm like, there's a man here who's dark and looks Mexican, who's probably Italian. Who is this? And he's like, oh, that's my great-grandfather. I'm like, God damn it. I was reading this watch in front of the picture of your great-grandfather. No wonder I'm picking up on him.
That's funny.
And he goes, oh, yeah, I didn't think of that. And I was like, oh, my God. Like, I'm thinking I don't have my skills anymore, and yet there's this other thing in the room. And there was a woman who had just died, and it was his daughter. So, of course, I'm going to pick up on the great-great-grandfather if his daughter just died, who was the grandmother. You know what I mean?
The great-grandfather was lurking around.
Right.
And interfering.
Right. And so I was not picking up on the energy signature with the other 2 because there were two timepieces that had the same energy and one that was different. So, of course, that's the one that I'm going to have the attraction to. I can do it that way because I was holding on to something. If you put me in front of a picture, I'm going to go, I don't know. I don't know anything. I'm dumb. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, the frustrating thing with the picture reading for me is that I'm like, okay, I can tell you about what was going on in this person's life at this time. But to find out what's going on now, I have to, try to move up the stream and then stop in the right place. Not go too far forward, because any of that stuff I won't be able to confirm. I have to figure out when today is. Mm-hmm. And y'all know how good I am at figuring out when today is. I don't know.
If the person's in the room, shouldn't you be feeling that energy, or is that something that you're just too focused on the picture to recognize?
10 years have changed between the person in the picture and the person in the room. That's, for one, all of your cells are different. For 2, your energy is fundamentally different. So it makes sense to me. True. The person in the picture is not the person in the room.
That is true. Okay, I never thought about it that way.
Well, that's what I have a problem sometimes when I do readings. And I don't do necessarily readings with pictures as a thing, but it's sometimes I'll put a picture of someone that I'm reading on as if I was not reading the picture, but reading the person, to remind me, okay, this is the person that I need to concentrate. It's like a focus point.
Right, as if they were sitting at the table.
Yeah, if they were sitting in front of me, exactly. But not necessarily the picture. I'm not thinking to myself, did they feel this way at this time when this picture was taken? I'm thinking, this is who I need to connect to, who is somebody somewhere else in the world right now. But I don't do it for clients. I do it only for myself. Mm-hmm. And for close friends, because, you know, like, you don't want that kind of, at least me, my opinion is like, because I've had clients that have been like, here's a picture of this guy that I like. And I'm like, okay. You know, like, and I don't feel comfortable because I'm like, it doesn't make a difference. For me, when I read for other people, it doesn't make a difference to show me a picture or not. Mm-hmm. I'm still going to get the same response, like the same thing that I'm going to see it the same way. Picture or not.
Yeah, and for me, like when I'm doing readings for clients, I'm using my cards, and that's the way I like to do my readings. But in this specific instance, it was a like no cards allowed, just the picture. However, in that particular clip or case, she did use her pendulum to continue to talk to the spirit of the dead boy, and he told her all about his murder. So, plausible explanation for why she didn't sense he was in the room. However, conversing with a not actually dead spirit who described his murder in detail, like, yeah, that was a big whiff.
So, which mediums do you think are real and which ones aren't? Or do you think they're all real? Or which? How do you feel about that?
Well, I am now feeling more open-minded about John Edward.
You hated him before.
I'm like not sold on Tyler Henry, but I actually haven't watched his show at all, so I'm open-minded there. Less convinced than John Edward, like less open-minded than I am about John Edward now. But the rest of them, Teresa Caputo offends me. We've talked about how she offends me. I grew up with a mother who was psychic, so her psychic manners are just the worst. They're shameful. I get secondhand embarrassment watching her. So I cannot even deal. So that's not like my problem with her, like as a person, just like her manners are just so atrocious when it comes to psychic stuff that I can't even bear to watch.
Yeah, she goes up to people in the grocery store like, your father, his name is Tim? How did you know that? Yeah, he wants to say that you still owe him $40, just saying. Okay, well, I'm going to go keep on shopping now. And you're just like, what?
Yeah, that is so not okay. And I could probably go on for like 4 hours about why that's not okay. And I won't. But
thank you.
You're welcome. And I don't think she's genuine. I don't. But
I don't know if she is or isn't. It to be honest, it doesn't bother. Like same thing with John Edwards. I don't know if he is or isn't genuine, but I really don't care. Like it's not something that keeps me up at night. Going like, is he or isn't he? You know, like it's not. I'm not worried about it because I feel like I'm gonna sound like if I'm such a high. Like, so uppity about it.
Yeah, let's
but
get shady. Come on.
This get shady. I'm going to sound slightly uppity. Not that I don't like mediums, because obviously, Heather, I love you, and you're a medium. But I really don't, like, I don't like mediums that much. And it's not the actual, like, the act of being a medium, like, you know, like, the ability. I don't like mediums because sometimes they say things that are so incredibly preposterous that I'm just like, really? Like, it's almost as if they need to be so different and so unusual, so then people will hear them. Mm. And at least my experience and what I've seen. Recently, in one of my videos on YouTube, somebody wrote saying that about Adoring Virtue, who is not a medium, I believe. I don't know.
She's not.
Okay, so they said that they had spoken to a medium, and that medium told her that Adoring Virtue's soul had left her body, and that somebody else entered her body, and that's why she's acting the way that she is, and like why? And I was like, what? Like what?
Oh, the whole walk-in thing.
Yeah.
Bullshit.
Yeah. That's a rumor that's going around the internet that Doreen Virtue is a walk-out, walk-in.
It's like those kind of things that I'm just like, what?
I think sometimes people use the word medium and psychic interchangeably.
Mm-hmm.
In this case, we're using medium as in someone who talks to dead people. I think in that case, they were using medium as in psychic.
If you notice, I don't say them a medium very often.
Yeah.
Charlene doesn't either. Charlene's a medium too, by the way, and we don't see her talking about it very often.
Mm-hmm.
There's a reason for me. I don't know what Charlene's thought point on this is, but for me, It's because I don't agree with like 90% of what mediums do. So I have some real issues. And one of the biggest issues I have with mediumship is this whole you need to go to the light bullshit. A person's choice whether or not to ascend is a soul thing. It has nothing to do with you. And to say that because you're a medium and because you can see this light, whatever this light is, first of all, it's a Christian construct. There's no fucking light.
I don't see a light.
Secondly,
I don't see one.
Secondly, it's not your choice to tell anybody to go to the light. That's their choice. You don't know what's in their Akashic records. You don't know what they decided to do in the afterlife. We don't even know what the afterlife looks like. So to assume that somebody needs to leave this plane to go into a light is fucking ludicrous. It's just, you're taking a lot of leaps and bounds that you just don't have the authority to take.
People too, they might have their reasons.
Right. And that's the whole thing. Like, there's things that haven't been worked out on this plane, and they're here for whatever reason, whether it's fear, or whether it's because they're helping somebody, or whether it's because they're stuck. That's not your fucking job to figure out. It's your job to see them, to acknowledge them. If they ask for help, great. But I don't see any dead people, and I've seen a lot of dead people in my lifetime. I don't see any of them coming to me and going, oh, I see this light and I need to get to it. Nobody has ever told me that.
No, they're usually just going on about their business.
They're going on about their business. You know, I did a case once. I'll make this story really short, but I did this case once where we were in this haunted house and there was this person, this sentient being. It actually was a ghost, like a real ghost, it was not a residual haunting. He was making the place crazy. We did the research for the house. It ends up that he committed suicide and tried to kill his wife and his child, and they got out and he didn't want to go to jail for it. So he committed suicide in this house. Well, he's Catholic. And so part of his religion was that if you commit suicide, you don't go to heaven, right? That's Catholic, right?
Right.
So he was stuck there in this house and he was making all kinds of crazy in the house.
Oh, yeah, we'd rather stick around than go to hell.
Right. And we were trying to talk to him and say, hey, it's okay. You're not going to hell. There's no hell. You know what I mean? Yeah. Try telling that to a ghost. So the more we're talking about, the more things that are happening in this house. And finally I just said, dude, you're going to have to live with this person until they figure it out. I'm sorry, but you guys are going to have to come up with some contract with this ghost, because there are certain places in this house that he is going to be and he is going to drive you crazy. So you can, 1, move out of the house, or 2, you can figure out how to have ghost rolls. Those are your choices. No way that I'm going to push some guy with that kind of belief system who is stuck in this house because he's feeling so guilty for what he did to his wife and his kid and himself. There's no way I'm going to push him anywhere. He's stuck there. He needs to be stuck there until he figures that out. And that's part of his soul journey. And the reality is that you can't push somebody like that to the light. Like, where are you pushing them to? What is this light? Where does it go? Why would you go there? How do you know what it is?
Yeah. And like free will and stuff, you know? Like, if he needs to work through that, then he needs to work through it.
I mean, I'm really, really understanding of Maria when she says, when you say, you're here, so when you say that you feel a little elitist when it comes to mediumship, and I totally get it, because mediums think that they have all these rules that they don't. They believe in these things that don't really exist. And there is a lot of like, oh, well, since I can see dead people, I know better. And it's like, no, you don't. You're still here. How would you know? I mean, for me, I walk the line between the living and the dead all the time. I have 1 foot in the underworld and 1 foot in this reality all the time. A lot of times I don't know the difference between real people and dead people. A lot of times I see dead people for real people, etc., etc. That's why I don't like crowded places, because I'm not sure who's really there. So, yeah, I get it. That doesn't mean that I have any kind of jurisdiction over the underworld. It just means that I can see it, that I can understand it, that I can perceive it, and I believe it. And that's the only thing that makes me different from anybody else. And to me, that doesn't mean that all of a sudden I have uber ultra powers of like judicial powers over who stays and who goes. Like that just seems so stupid to me on so many levels.
Right? It's the same influence you have over living people still. Like, you can say get out, but you can't, like, I guess you can try to, like, bum rush someone to get them out, but, like, you know, you really can't control their limbs and force them to walk towards the door.
Well, why do we have this god complex around mediumship? Like somehow you have some extra powers, and that's kind of like what I felt with the woman who had the kid behind them, the Dominique lady. I felt that sense of, like, I am better than you because I have mediumship abilities, and I've solved some cases.
Yeah. And I totally sympathize with your issue of, like, you know, walking around dead people who wouldn't be bothered if you ran into them.
Yeah.
See, I never had that problem. I always heard them, but I couldn't see them.
I have strict rules
when I was a kid
about contact now that I'm an adult to make my life a little bit easier. Also, that freaks me out in the middle of the night. So, very strict rules about conduct. So I definitely sympathize. But yeah, they're just people. Like, people are people. The cool thing is that, like, dead animals are better at talking. Not great, but better. You know? But that's a giveaway when you run into dead animals, though, because living animals don't talk.
That is very interesting.
But, you know, that's, you know, it's very hard to tell the difference, but you still have the same relationship. You know, people are people are people are people. So why would you have any special powers to force a dead person to do something? You have more influence on a living person because at least you can, like, smash matter together.
It's true. And what is this light? Where did this light come from? Nobody even knows where this. I tried to look up this whole light concept before.
I don't know.
There's no light.
Thing, like the movie.
There's no light. I think I assume we're talking about the light you see for when you do near-death experiment, like near-death experiences, near-death experiences. That light, I think that's what we're talking about. That's the only thing I could come up with when I tried to do research on this. And I'm like, well, there's a correlation between near-death experiences and this light we're talking about with mediumship. I don't see any other connection. And I really tried hard. I read a lot of books and did a lot of research. But the whole thing with the near-death experience that you don't realize is that there's a scientific reason for why we see that light. It's because the blood is rushing down into your body and you're losing consciousness, and there is a chemical in your brain that creates that white light. Astronauts see it when they go into strong G gravities, and you can actually replicate it with this machine that they have that puts you into that I think it's 5G or 4G is when you start to have it happen. But when they go into this, when they start to lose consciousness, and they only lose consciousness for a second, a lot of them have talked about seeing that white light that we're talking about. And they've done lots of brain scanning on it, and there is a chemical, and I can't remember the name of the chemical, but it actually is, your body gets flooded with it, your brain does, and it creates that white light. It's much like the DMT thing. Like, you start to, So there is an actual scientific thing for it, and it's something that happens to living people, not dead people. That's the other thing. Like, you have to be alive in order to experience the white light. And I don't think mediums think about that.
No.
You actually have to have consciousness in order for it to happen. And that's why people who come back from the white light talk about the white light.
They're still alive.
Because they're still alive.
Right. So, yeah, and that just tells you that, like, like, psychics are people too. Like, we, just like other humans, like, we have this filter that we're looking at the world through that is our own personal filter, just like everybody else. It's not some, like, all-knowing, omnipotent, omniscient kind of position. Like, we're muddling our way through it, and there are no really reputable schools you can go to for this stuff. You just kind of have to feel your way.
You do. I mean, there's Lilydale and stuff like that, but I even have a problem with that.
That's not a school. That's a town.
No, it's a town, but yeah, I mean, or Sedona.
Oh, the town. Yeah, the town in Florida, you mean?
It's Casadega. The Lilydale's in New York. Sedona's
Willie
in Arizona.
Nelson, New York. Are you sure?
Lilydale.
Yeah, Lilydale. Yeah.
Lilydale is in New York. Casadega is in Florida, and Sedona is in Arizona.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, there's 3 of them.
There's a lot of mediumship, but again, it's all conjecture at this point. We don't really know what happens in the afterlife. We don't really know where spirits go. We don't really know why ghosts are here. We don't really know how we're connecting to these spirits. We know that it's non-local, and that's all we know. I don't know. I think there is just a lot of things that mediums think that are so theoretical. It's like with ghost hunters, and I don't want to get into that, but it's like with paranormal investigators, I'm not supposed to call them ghost hunters. But there's all these things in the field that people do, like KT meters and all this stuff, and they don't even know that there's theory behind it. And when you go down to the theory, everything is conjecture. Everything is, this probably works. Nobody really has any factual, definite data. No data points. There's none.
Seems like it should probably maybe work. Perhaps.
Yeah, we're using tools from other fields, and we're bringing them to investigate ghosts, which we know nothing about, and we're saying, "Oh yeah, this is real." Okay.
Yeah, this is so sciencey. Here's
right.
another thing that goes, bing.
Right. We don't know. There's nothing empirical about it. There's no quantifying anything with it. It's all very we think this happens, and they do study paranormal investigating in parapsychology. Mm-hmm. Strangely enough, they do, and they don't really know what's going on. They have an idea, and we see these shows, and we see ghost hunters out there who are like, this is definitely an EVP. You don't know that's an EVP. All you know is that you have something that registers on a tape recorder that could seem like a voice. It could be PK. It could be environmental noise that you just forgot about. It could be a lot of things. There's a 0%, 1% chance that it's actually a ghost. We don't know.
I never hear what they're hearing on those recordings.
I don't either. There's a really big word that this audio.
Yeah, you just posted that the other day.
Pareidolia or something like that.
Yeah, something like that. It was a good word, and I wanted to remember it.
I always want to say onomatopoeia, but I know that's wrong.
What's the word? What's the meaning for the word?
It's where you make words out of random noises in your brain. Like the noises are out loud, but you make them into words. It's just like seeing faces in random objects.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about, but I don't remember the word either.
Yeah, I forgot it. It's a really good word, and I wanted to remember it, and I didn't, clearly.
It's pareidolia. I did say it correctly. Wow, first try. So it's called audio pareidolia, and then pareidolia is the site form. But audio pareidolia is a thing where you tell somebody that it sounds like this, and then it does.
Yeah, and it never does. And I'm always disappointed.
Yeah, or you tell somebody it's a face in a picture, then they see a face.
I've had that. I've seen the ghost hunter shows, and they'll be like, and they won't say anything. They'll be like, "We heard this sound, and we think we know it sounds like something." And I hear it, and I'm like, I don't know what the heck it is. And then all of a sudden they say it, and I'm like, I can hear it now. And yeah, that's the problem with EVPs sometimes. Yeah,
or they'll put the captioning at the bottom and play it again, but I'm always like, no, I still don't hear it.
I don't either. I'm really bad at EVPs. I'm really bad at pictures too.
Me too. And people will be like, this makes a face, and I'm like, that looks like a puddle to me.
I'm bad with the face, but I'm good with the EVPs. I can usually hear something.
But we don't. A lot of times we see it, but we don't. We see them getting them. We don't know the methodology behind it. We don't know if they're jotting. They have somebody jotting sounds down. You don't know everybody's voices in the room. You don't know the external environment of where they are. You don't know if they're picking up on, with your Bluetooth, you're picking up on somebody else's TV.
Yeah, or maybe somebody walked by outside.
Yeah, you don't know any of
that. Dog or something.
Right.
And it wasn't loud enough for them to hear it, but since they crank their recordings way up.
Yep. But like I was saying before, on one of our podcasts, Maria was getting all of this noise, and we found out she was using headless Bluetooth.
Not headless, wireless Bluetooth.
Wireless Bluetooth.
She
Yeah.
totally was using her head, though. That would be weird.
Sorry. She was using wireless Bluetooth headphones. That's what I meant to say. And she's headless now. She doesn't have a head.
We should put it with the parchment.
Right. Parchment paper.
The parchment.
But yeah, and we were like, where is it coming from? And she was getting a signal from her headset.
Yeah, and
I wasn't hearing. Like, I couldn't hear it.
Hear it, but we could.
Yeah, and they were like, the whole entire time, like, where does that sound? I'm like, I don't know what the heck you're talking about. 'Cause I don't hear anything. I'm good.
Yeah, she took off the headset and all of a sudden it went away. So we were like, yeah, it's the Bluetooth. Your Bluetooth is picking up on stuff. So who knows? Your phone could be picking up on something that messes up your recording. I mean, I don't know. I'm super skeptical of these. I'm a psychic, but I'm like so skeptical it's not even funny.
Yeah, same here.
Same.
Like I'm skeptical of other psychics. I'm skeptical of the paranormal I'm gonna call them ghost hunters because I don't think they're that reputable. I'm super skeptical of the ghost hunters on TV and stuff like that. In fact, I have had several people try to connect with my mother over the last 20 years, and only one of them sounded vaguely accurate, but I can't say for sure. And it's without my prompting. Like, I haven't asked any of them.
Ooh.
Which I think is rude as fuck. I didn't ask you. They're like, wait a minute, I really feel like your mother's around you right now. Yeah, she really wants you to know X, Y, and Z. And I'm like, yeah, that is never something she would ever say in all of time. Sorry. That's nice, but stop.
So that's kind of like a Caputo move, right?
It's bad manners. In fact, if you were talking to my mother, she would be like, she didn't ask. Be quiet, because my mother taught me that.
Yeah, I have issue with that too. Like, I started watching that show once, and I'm like, why are you just running around telling people stuff that is, like, again, what's with the elitism? Like, fucking A. Mm-hmm. Like, that's so rude. You don't just go into people's energy field and pull out stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like, snooping is invasive. Control yourself.
Yeah.
That is none of your business.
So were any of the people that did it, were they even close?
No. One sounded plausible. He was like, your mom wants you to listen to this song. I was like, well, that is a band she liked, but I've never heard that song before.
I've only had one. I've had several see if they can talk to my dad. Mm-hmm. And I've only had one that I felt was, like, honest and like, you know, what she saw was real, because she described my dad. Mm-hmm. But then again, she was dating my ex-husband, and my ex-husband could have told her how my dad looked like, but I don't see why he would. It doesn't sound like a conversation. Yeah, it doesn't sound like a conversation that they would have at any moment in time. Yeah, like that's a conversation to have. But she said that the first time she saw me, she saw my dad behind me, and I was like, okay. And I know that my dad's around. Like, every once in a while, I'll feel him, or I won't see him, but I'll have dreams with him and everything. But I'll know he's here. So I was like, okay. And she said a couple other things that, you know, hit the mark. But other than that, I've never had a single other medium even remotely get my dad, ever. They would get, like, one time they got my grandmother, and I was like, really? They're like, yeah, she's this old lady, and she's like a wild child. And I was like, you did not know my grandmother, lady, if you said that she's a wild child. That is the most, like, stern, traditional woman I've ever met in my life. That woman never did anything that was wild in any way, shape, or form. Neither of them, for that matter. And she's like, really? Because I see that she's like she would go out and party. And I was like, nope, not in Cuba. She didn't. That ain't happening in the 20s and 30s. Like, no.
I've never had an accurate mediumship reading either. That's so funny. Like, people always say, oh, there's so many people around you. And I'm like, well, yeah, because, yeah, of course people around me, I'm a medium, but that doesn't mean any of them belong to me. Like, doesn't make any sense to me. But I wonder why that is. I wonder why we've all never really got a very good medium reading or a good hit.
Well, I think because, like you said, like, they're only 50% accurate, right? Psychics on average.
60, yeah, 50 to 60,
50 to
around
60?
60, yeah.
I mean, I haven't had hardly any good, until I met you girls, I haven't had any accurate psychic readings either. Ever.
Yeah, me neither. I've had one. Oh, so aside from the ones that you ladies are giving me, the ones, for some reason, the ones you guys give me are always spot on. I did have one reading one time, and she said some things, and I'm like, dude, you were so off base, and they all happened. And I was like, okay, there's something to that. But she was the only one.
Yeah, I've never had.
Other than that, I get a lot of bullshit.
Other than you guys. They're always just completely off base, and I'm like, wow, I didn't even ask, but thank you.
Or I get a lot of people that read cards and then don't really know how to explain the cards to me, so then I have to look at the cards and then I write them down and then I do my own interpretation, and I'm like, okay, I know what she was trying to say. But yeah, I've been very frustrated with the whole getting a reading thing.
Yeah. So, and you, Maria, how's your reading experience been?
Like from other people?
Yeah.
Giving me readings? Well, you guys are usually spot on. Typically, you're spot on. But I think it's because you guys understand. We've been friends for so long, for like over 10 years, close to? Like 8 years?
Something like that.
Something like that. And I think that we know each other's energy enough that we're not like, I think this is what it is. It's more like, yeah, that's what it is because I know you. I know that energy. I connect. And mind you, just for everybody to know, you two have met each other in person, but I have never met either one of you in person. Like I've never met Heather or Charlene, but we still do really good readings with each other for that reason. That's why when like I've noticed that with my clients, like the longer they're my client, and mind you, I don't find them on Google or anything in that nature. I don't even know past their first name, if anything. And the longer I read for them, the more I have those connections. I because I'm used to the energy. I get the energy and I know exactly how to say it and I know exactly how to express it. And I think that's the thing with like some people, when they get a reading the first time with somebody new, they're just like, oh, this person doesn't know anything. It's because they're not accustomed to the energy that you're throwing at them. You know, that's my, like, when it comes to those times that you do like oh, they're so wrong. And then like 20 days later, they're like, oh my God, it all came true. Which I've had that with clients sometimes. Usually you guys are dead on, are spot on. And other than that, if the only bad readings or like the not so good readings that I've had are psychics or tarot card readers that have given me, and I could tell that they were giving me cold readings. And usually they're like at like certain like events that they can't really like get into it. They can't give you like a full hour. They're just like, it's only 5-minute readings. So you're just like, they just try to grab as much as they can in those 5 minutes. And they're usually like little bits and pieces. So they can't really like dive in deep. So it's like very like, it looks good. And I'm like, okay, so you're not really telling me anything, but okay. I get you. We're good. I understand what you're doing because I've been there. I've been in the situation and we all have. But usually like most readings are kind of 50-50. In my experience, like the long ones, the ones that I've actually like before I even started reading tarot, that I had like an hour or two readings, those were usually 50-50 or pretty damn on, like 50, 60, 70% accurate.
Now, see, for me, like, I count things that are, like, very general or very vague as just bad. Mm-hmm. Like, if they're like, I see you waking up tomorrow. Like, yeah, I also see that.
And I see you putting on shoes.
See that?
Yes, I do like apparel, actually.
That I would call a hit because I usually don't put shoes on during the day. So there. Okay. But you get the idea. Like a lot of them are like, I see things are just generally going to improve. I see you're working really hard. I'm like, yeah, that's most humans.
Right.
Most humans are working really hard, or at least they think they are. So
So I feel like in this podcast we are debunking psychics and we are psychics. So how does that work out? Like,
well, we're debunking. We're both debunking psychics. We're giving credence that there are fake ass psychics out there, and
Mm-hmm.
there are some real psychics who suck at their jobs.
That too.
And we are also saying, however, being psychic is a real thing, and just because there are mechanics in the world who scam people does not mean that there are not real mechanics.
That is true. When you have a connection with somebody, you have a connection with somebody. There are people that I just could not connect with. Like, I could not get in to save my life. And then there's other people that I've read for them once, and I got so much information. I'm like, whoa, that's pretty cool. So, yeah, I guess there's I think for me, to wrap this all up, for me, I feel like John Oliver is not wrong, but he's not right either.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
There's a lot of gray that's happening where it's TV, and so he's going to edit it in a certain way for his point of view. But there's a lot of other factors happening that really affect whether or not a reading is accurate or not.
Yeah. And for me, like I said, there's a lot of bad psychics in the world. Either bad because they're outright scamming people, or because they're just not good. Like, they haven't had the training, the experience, and the guidance, and their locus for what's normal is not very good. Like, their frame of reference is bad, and whatever. But that doesn't mean that psychics aren't real. Like my honey said earlier, an absence of evidence is not evidence of absence.
Part of this, and now that I'm thinking about it when I just said that, I think the stigma is that because you're psychic, you have superpowers.
No.
And if you look at it through the lens of, like, psychic abilities are just part of the human experience, and as humans, like you said before, you've gotten some things wrong in your job, that doesn't mean you're not good at your job. Same can be said for psychics. I mean, if you see it as a part of the human experience, and you see it that humans are fallible, then it makes sense that it's not as black and white as people make it out to be. But I think we need to destigmatize it and stop calling it a superpower.
Absolutely. I genuinely 100% believe, in all complete sincerity, that everybody is psychic. Even
Me too.
John Oliver.
Same.
100%. I don't believe I have a superpower. I can program computers. I also don't think that's a superpower. I cannot fix a car, and I don't think that fixing a car is a superpower. I think they're all pretty spiffy things. They're great skills to have, and not all of us have the time to develop every single skill on the planet, nor the inclination to do so, and that's cool.
Yeah, and I think that's part of the mediumship stigma, too, is that we seem to think of it as a superpower, or we seem to think of it something that not everybody can attain, and I think you can. I think if you want to communicate with your loved ones, and you can, and there's plenty of ways to do it that are not going to a medium. You should be able to do these things. I mean, I think we've forgotten in the Western culture, I think we've forgotten that ancestors and mediumship is kind of part of our gig. And if we were to do more ancestral work, ancestral worship, we would recognize that talking to your loved ones is a very natural part of spirituality.
Yes. And we have this whole weirdness around, like, death and dying and grieving. And if we were not so weird about it, if we considered that more of a normal part of life, we would be more open to this kind of contact.
I think so. So I think that's really the crux of it. I think that's why I don't feel like John Oliver is wrong, only because in how we've set up our expectations of mediums and psychics, he's absolutely correct. But if we were to really see it for what it was, and we put it in the context that it deserves, then it becomes a very natural, everyday thing, like brushing your teeth. Like, hey, I talked to my grandma today and also brushed my teeth, and then I did the dishes.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what I think it is. Just an everyday normal thing.
Same.
Absolutely. So, yeah, you summed it up perfectly, Heather. I think that's the real deal, and I think that we'll get to a place as a society where it will be normal someday.
I'm hoping.
I'm not good at time, so I can't tell you when.
I'm not either. There's no picture in front of me, so they're all dead to me.
Okay, so we love John Oliver and all, but there was a lot to unpack in that episode, and so I think we unpacked it.
Yeah.
We did.